All right, if you don't want to be recorded, let me know, please. All right. Okay, session being recorded, but I still want your attention out here. Okay, so scaling Agile with SAFe, Scaled Agile Framework. Okay, before I get into this one, the first thing I want to do is poll. I want to know the audience better. So look at this poll and could you please answer the two simple questions out here. How would you rate your experience in Agile? How would you rate your knowledge in SAFe? That's it. Two simple questions. This will help me understand the audience better. All right, 65% have voted. 76% have voted. Few more to go. 5 more to go, to be precise. If you have not voted, please do it. People who just joined, the poll is going on, just vote. These are two simple questions. How would you rate your experience and knowledge in Agile and SAFe, right? So I'll give you 25 seconds more in case you want to change your answer. All right. Done? That's it? 6 more people. All right. There you go. Good. 80%. Right. Even if you know me, it's okay you can vote. All right. So ending poll. 1, 2, 3. Boom. And sharing the results. So this is what we have. Okay. Most of you are a 4. Awesome. Great. The second question, most of you are a 3. Perfect. All right. And there are 3 people who are new to SAFe. I'll be mindful of your presence. There are a few people who rate themselves as a 2 as well. So I will be mindful of your presence as well, right? So this really helps because I can understand the audience now. And this also helps me that it's not just me who is going to talk. If you can share something, because there are few of you who have got very good experience in SAFe. If you can share your experience out here, that would be fantastic. Okay. All right. Let's get going. So SAFe framework. This is the big picture, right? Now, when you look at this big picture, this is SAFe 5.1. How do you know this is SAFe 5.1? Look at this below, right? Bottom right. That is what it says. SAFe 5.1, and there are a few specific changes which have been made in SAFe 5.1. But before I get into SAFe 5.1 changes, let me be mindful of those people who are on this call who are new to SAFe. All right. So I'm just going to explain SAFe, the big picture, from from the person's perspective who's looking at the big picture for the first time. So I'm going to explain that in very quick summary kind of a thing. I would say SAFe in a cup, right? Crash course. All right. So the first thing, when you look at this big picture, don't be too confused because it is divided into layers. And how do you know? These are the layers: essential, large solution, and portfolio. That's it. So these are the 3 layers. Now you understand, oh, this is what it is. It becomes very easy for you to actually understand and absorb the concepts because everything is stated in a very simple manner. All right, so we have these things in place, and I'm very quickly going to explain what SAFe is, then get into the details. All right, so stay with me. I'm going to load up the website scaledagileFramework.com. For the next 15 minutes, I will just explain that, and then we will come back, right? Because I'm going to do PI planning simulation, exactly how to do PI planning as well, the roles and responsibilities. These are the important topics we want to cover. So we need some time, but I don't want people who are new to be lost in this discussion and conversations, right? So what I'm going to do is, there you go. Okay, so scaledagileFramework.com. If you go to this website, you see this big picture. The first thing that comes up is this the full safe. This is what we saw. So there are three layers: essential, large solution, and portfolio. So if people who are new, this is the idea. These are the layers, and there are 4 configurations. So there are 3 layers and 4 configurations, right? Now the configurations are defined here. Look at this. Okay, so these are the 4 configurations. So 3 layers, 4 configurations. And the other important thing that you need to be able to understand in SAFe is there are 3 layers, 4 configurations. 3 plus 4, how much? 3 plus 4, come on. Okay, I'll give it to you. 7. So 7 what? 7 core competencies. Simple. 3 layers, 4 configurations, 3 plus 4, 7 core competencies. That's all you need to know, because that's what SAFe is all about. Now, when we talk about 3 layers and 4 configurations, what exactly they mean is this. All right. So out of these 3 layers, which layer is mandatory? This layer is mandatory, which means the other 2 layers are optional. Okay. When you want to implement SAFe, you can start with this concept first and foremost. The essential layer is mandatory, other 2 are optional, and that is why, depending on the complexity of the company, the organizations, and the work, you define which layers do you need in your organization, right? And that is why these configurations is nothing but a combination of these layers. That's all, right? So when you go to essential SAFe, that is the first configuration, it will have only essential layer without the other 2, because essential is mandatory, isn't it? The other 2 are optional. So it will not have the other 2 layers, it will have only essential layer. When you go to large solution, it will have essential and large solution. It will not have portfolio. When you go to portfolio, it will have essential and portfolio without large solution. Simple, all right? And then full SAFe is a combination of all the 3 layers. That's it. So once you understand this concept, then you see, okay, let's start small. So which means let's look at essential layer. All right. So the combination of the layers will give you which configuration you are in. That's it. And you define and decide what is right for your organization. Do you need only essential layer? Do you need essential plus portfolio? Do you need essential and large solution? Or you need all 3 layers? And that definition is very important, because when you are going to drive SAFe in your workspace, these are the questions that needs to be answered first. How big is your train? How many trains are there? How many teams are there? All those questions needs to be answered, and that will help you decide which combination is required. Okay. Any questions? Any thoughts? All right. Now, very quickly, what I'm going to do is I'm going to explain the roles and responsibilities here. Okay. Now, SAFe here can be divided into 2 parts. All right. Essential. I'm just focusing on essential because essential is essential. The other 2 are not essential. So we'll focus on essential right now. So this is how I divide it. The group, or the section below this red line, I call it team. All right, because this is for the teams. And the section above the red line is program. Okay, so you can divide essential layer into 2 sub layers, team and program. That's it. So if you divide, and that is the beauty of Agile. Remember, batch size should be small. And that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to create small batch size for your understanding. And that's what will make a big difference when you actually look at this big picture. Okay. So when you look at team layer, what do you see? This is what you see: Agile teams. Okay. Agile teams, the main roles and responsibility is same as Scrum. When you talk about Scrum, there are 3 most important roles and responsibilities. One is the product owner, one is the Scrum master, and one is the team. See, any company to be successful, they need to focus on 3 things: technical, what else? Functional, right? The requirements, and process. That's it. If you focus on these 3 things, the company will be successful in delivering value. So there are representatives for these 3 areas. So who takes care of functional? Product owner. Who takes care of technical? the team, the doers, and who takes care of the process, the Scrum Master. That's it. Now, look at this. In Scrum, we call it what? What do we call in Scrum? We call this group the dev team. But in SAFe, we don't call it dev team. There is no name. Why there is no name? Because who is part of this group? And the answer is everyone. Everyone, the doers, include business and technology. This is the change in 5.1. This is one of the changes in 5.1. So in the previous version of SAFe, which is 5.0, they had clearly specified dev, ops, all those people. Clearly they had specified in the older version of SAFe, right? Or 5.0 version of SAFe. But in SAFe 5.1, they have just combined into two categories. That's it, business and technology. Because Agile by itself is not enough. It's not just technology driven. It is business driven as well. And both have to have a clear-cut handshake. And that's when the company will be truly agile. That's when we will say there is business agility, right? And that is why this group is a combination of all these things coming together. So who are those people? The developers, the testers, operations, support, right? Infrastructure, all those people who need to be there to make sure the DevOps team, all those people have to be part of the system team, should be part of this group, okay? They could be shared resource or they could be full-time. It all depends, okay? So that is the first thing.
Fridge mein hai, tiffin box mein, with the purple lid.
Any questions?
Take it and usko garam kar.
I'm almost done. I only have like 4 more.
No, you are not on mute.
But
Sorry. All right.
ठीक है जाओ.
Okay, I will mute. That's okay. All right. Now, this is what we have. Okay. Now, the backlog is called team backlog because the backlog is at the team level called team backlog. Who owns it? Product owner. That's it. The roles and responsibilities are slowly getting clearer out here. Now, what does the team backlog contain? Stories and enablers. That's it. Okay. Now, what are enablers? Enablers are technical stories. Stories are functional. Enablers are technical. So all the non-functional requirements, when you talk about infrastructure, you talk about architecture, you talk about compliance, you talk about POCs, proof of concepts, all those things, everything comes under enablers. So enablers enable the story to be complete, right? And that's what the definition of done has to be. Without the enablers, without the non-functional requirements, without the tracks, the train cannot move. So the tracks have to be in place, which means the network, the infrastructure, everything should be placed, the environment should be in place, the database should be in place, the data has to be there. Who accounts for those kind of work, right? So those are all part of enablers. Okay. What else? So you have this backlog, you have the product owner who owns the backlog, and the Scrum Masters, of course, they run the show. In a way, they are the facilitators, they are the servant leaders, they help remove impediments and so on and so forth, right? So they do a lot of stuff which is part of this. The cadence increments is called iterations. They are not called sprints in SAFe, it's called iterations. All right, that's the first thing. And SAFe recommends a 2-week iteration, right? They recommend a 2-week iteration because you always need to ask the question why? And the answer is shorter the cycles, faster the learning. Shorter the cycle, faster the learning. And there is also one more thing I want to make sure everyone is aware of. This backlog, there is a golden rule to the backlog. And the golden rule is, if something is in the backlog, it may get done. If it is not in the backlog, it will not get done. Right? Simple. Which means there are no assumptions whatsoever. Even documentation requires effort, which means it has to be part of the backlog because someone is going to pull that work and put some time against it, and that's why it has to be part of the backlog. All right, moving on. So I'm sure many of you understand the team level because it is normal Scrum, and a lot of people are experienced out here. Now, any questions at the team level? Forget the program level, only at the team level. Do you have any questions? You can say no also if you don't have. If you have, you please tell me. Everything clear? Give me a thumbs up if things are clear. There are some chats coming through. Okay, perfect. Okay. Why it is called Scrum XP, not Scrum? Beautiful. All right. So there are a couple of things. Now, first thing is this. The team level. Okay. First and foremost, we need to understand this. The team can use either Scrum or Kanban or a combination of the two. What is the combination of the two called? Come on, you know it. Scrum and Kanban. There were two people. One named Scrum, one named Kanban. They got married. They had a beautiful child. What did they name the child? Scrumban. There you go. Okay. All right. So we have Scrum, we have Kanban, and we have XP. Extreme programming. Extreme programming. It's very important because built-in quality is the core of making sure you deliver not just value, you deliver true value to the customers. And that doesn't come by giving just anything to the customer. We need to make sure quality work is delivered. And that is why XP practices make a big difference in delivering true value to the customer. Okay. So what are the XP practices? Pair programming or pair work, right? Peer reviews, definition of done, having a clear definition of done makes a big difference. TDD, test-driven development, BDD, behavioral-driven development, refactoring your code, which means fine-tuning your code without changing the functionality. Also, you need to understand that there has to be collective ownership, and also there has to be coding standards. All these things makes the product with quality, and that is all XP practices. It's very important to be part of it. And that is why it is Scrum and XP coming together. So you just don't deliver work, you deliver quality work, right? So, okay, so does this mean that at the team level, SAFe is only for software? No. It is not only for software teams, okay? So team level is anyone who is doing the work, that's it. Usually, you know, if you think about it, Kanban has been adopted from lean manufacturing. If you think about lean manufacturing, right? What is it? What is Kanban? Kanban is nothing but visual cue, visual card. Anything visual is Kanban, because that's how humans are. We like to look at things. We like to see things. Why do you think I'm coloring out this, the big picture? Because when you look at it, it hits your head. And that's when you realize, you see and understand. So Kanban can be used anywhere, any non-IT, you know, at any level, in fact. It doesn't have to be software. But guess what? Every company is a software company, unfortunately, or fortunately. So that's how the world is today. So good questions coming through. So please, I repeat XP explanation again. SAFe is not just for IT software. Absolutely, it is not just for IT. We have implemented in manufacturing as well. Okay, so, but this is the thing. Always remember, this is what I believe in. I will explain XP again, just a minute, but let me complete my thought here. I believe, this is what I believe, okay? I believe that not every project is agileable. You get the idea, right? That may not be even a word, but you understand my thought process. Not every project is agileable, and I usually give this analogy. When you're building or constructing a building, you cannot just say that let's do agile way and we'll only focus on the first 4 floors and then we will think about the rest later. I don't like that, because you need to know everything about the building, how tall the building is, what is there on the top of the, you know, is there a swimming pool, is there a helipad, what exactly is there in that building? And based on that, you will have the blueprint, and based on that, you will have the foundation, isn't it? So you need complete plan of work for the requirements so that you can plan the work very well. But so you need to probably do that in a waterfall fashion. But having said that, once the building structure is ready, now think about this for a second. Once the structure of the building is ready, can't you do the interior designing in an agile fashion, saying that once you know the constraints, like once you know where the pillars are, once you know where the elevator shaft is, once you know where the sewage line is, once you know where the electrical panels are, once you have this information, don't you think you can be agile with your interior designing, saying that this could be a 1-bedroom, this could be a 2-bedroom, this could be a 3-bedroom, you know, and tomorrow you decide, oh no, let's make this a studio and make that a 4-bedroom. You know, you can do that, but you are aware of the constraints, right? The same thing applies in applying agile as well. So this is a scenario where you will be hybrid. So sometimes you have to use waterfall, sometimes you have to use agile, sometimes you have to combine the two. And that's what we need to be aware of, right? Always understand, this is what I believe, that when we get into an organization, don't go with a preconceived notion that we are going to change everything to an agile world. No, understand their world, understand their constraints, and try to be agile within their constraints. Otherwise, there will be a lot of resistance for sure, and you won't be able to deliver value. Doing agile and being agile are two different things. Doing agile is you're doing it because others are doing it. Being agile is making sure you understand why you're doing it and where will it really work well. All right. So let me move on. I know there are a few more questions. Don't worry, I'm going to be after 8 o'clock also. I'll continue to be here. I'll answer all the questions. Okay. But I have a few things to cover here. The next part is the teams are doing agile. Perfect. But it's not enough. There are still a lot of issues. Why there are issues? Because the work has become complex. Now, that's when you say that when the work becomes complex, you introduce the program layer, right? So this is when you're scaling agile, right? You introduce the program layer when the work becomes complex. Now, how do you know the work has become complex? And that is why we say if there are 50 to 125 plus, if there are 50 to 125 plus people working together to build the same product, that's when you know the work has become complex, because complexity and resources are directly correlated, right? There is a direct correlation with them. More the complexity, more the resources, unless everything is automated. That's a different issue, right? But this is what we have. So 50 to 125 plus people. This is why you need to know why. So again, why 50? Always ask the question, why 50? Because if you don't have around, because when you're scaling, when you're introducing the program layer, remember, you are introducing new roles. So you need to cater to those roles. You need to pay them salary. You need to assign more responsibilities, isn't it? So when the work is not complex, you may not have the need to introduce these roles because you don't have to scale. Because one person cannot do a role of a product management and a product owner. That becomes crazy. So this is why if you have around 50 people, this is the ballpark. This doesn't mean if you have 49 people, you're like, oh, I just missed it. No, that's not what it is. You decide when do you want to scale. 30 people you want to scale? No problem. 20 people you want to scale? No problem. But this is the best practices. This is the ballpark which is suggested by SAFe. Okay? Because it introduces new roles and responsibilities, and you need to be aware, you need to be able to, you know, make a judgment call in terms of, is it worth introducing these new roles, right? And that is why we have that. Okay. The next question is, what do they do? So product management, again, they are nothing but bigger product owners. They own the program backlog. The backlog at the program level is called program backlog. And what does the program backlog contain? My line actually is wrong out here. This line should have been this way. So sorry. Okay. So I'll just change it very quickly like this. All right. This is how it should be. All right. Ignore the above this line on the top. Okay. The program backlog, what does it contain? So the program backlog contains features and enablers. This is the key. The program backlog contains features and enablers. Now the question is, what are features? Features are bigger requirement. Simple. And then we have the program increment, PI. So the increment at the program level is called program increment. The increments at the team level is called iterations. That's it. So one PI is nothing but 1 quarter. You can consider it to be approximately 1 quarter long, right? Simple. So how do you know a requirement is a feature versus a story? And this is the idea. Always there's a confusion that I've seen in companies, that they don't know how to tag a requirement. Should it be an epic? Should it be a story? Should it be a feature? So this is the idea. Understanding that a story has to fit in an iteration by one team. That is the definition of a story. A feature has to fit in a PI by one train. All right. And oh, I just remembered, James, I wanted to explain the XP part. All right. So just a minute. So again, a story has to fit in an iteration by one team. When I say fit in an iteration, it has to be complete, fully complete. Testing, everything, right? Development, testing, everything should fit in one iteration. Whereas a feature has to be completed, totally completed within a PI. This is the maximum you can have. Okay. So for I think James had a question about XP. Let me explain it very quickly. XP is extreme programming. It is for built-in quality. Wanted to make sure that you send a quality product, which means you have refactoring in place, you have the definition of done in place, the pair programming, peer reviews, collective ownership, test-driven development, behavioral-driven development, whatever makes the the product with good quality should be part of XP. There are multiple XP practices, collective ownership and all those things, coding standards and all those things. I hope that helps. Okay, we have the program backlog. We have the roles and responsibilities. RTE, very important role. RTE stands for Release Train Engineer. They are Scrum Master on steroids, right? They are the chief Scrum Master. So whatever Scrum Master do at the team level, RTE will do at the program level. And the system architects, they take care of the technical part at the program level. So the roles and responsibilities have to be clearly understood, especially at the essential safe level, because this is the most important thing. All right, any questions? Just unmute yourself if you have any questions. All right, perfect, great. Now, I'm gonna remove this for the time being. I can go on and on into details, but I'm just being mindful of the time because I have a few other things I want to share. So this is the essential part, okay? And of course, if the work has become even more complex, then you introduce the large solution layer. So the difference between large solution and essential is essential has got one train and large solution has got multiple agile release trains, ART, agile release trains. Okay, how do you know? So remember, how many people? 50 to 125 plus. Do you remember that number? And that is the number 125 plus. So up to 125 plus, around 125, 130, 140, around that can be part of one agile release train because of something called the Dunbar's number, DUNBAR. It's important to understand that if there are too many people in a train, it can get chaotic. So up to 125 plus people will make it organized chaos, right? There will be chaos, but it will be organized chaos. So that is the capacity of one agile release train. So if you have 200 people, if you have 300 people in your company, then what do you do? And that's when we introduce the large solution layer, which has got multiple agile release trains. And that is very important, okay? And then of course, portfolio layer, when you talk about portfolio, everything starts with a vision of the company. So the vision, the strategy, and then portfolio backlog, then comes epics. Epics is something really big. That's a big requirement, which is broken down into capabilities, which is at the large solution level, which is broken down into features, and which is broken down into stories. And this is called the V model. V. Requirement comes from the top and it is delivered from the bottom. This is how it is. Requirements comes from the top in the form of strategic themes, in the form of epics and enablers, which is broken down into capabilities and enablers, which is further broken down into features and enablers, and finally into stories and enablers. This kind of alignment is extremely important in SAFe. And that's what makes the whole organization truly agile. And it takes time. It takes time, but one step at a time. And this is how we want to make sure things are in place. Any questions? Does it help? Give me a thumbs up, please. All right. Now, what I'm going to do is go to the next part. Thank you. I'm going to explain something called PI planning. All right. Look at this. Where am I? Where am I? Where am I? There you go. Do you see? PI planning. So PI stands for program increment. That is the cadence at the program level, right? And when we talk about the cadence at the team level, it is nothing but sprints or iterations, all right? But the first event or ceremony of an iteration is called iteration planning, isn't it? Sprint planning, right? That is the first ceremony or event of a sprint or an iteration. Similarly for PI, the first ceremony is called PI planning. And that is what is one of the most important events of SAFe, PI planning. If you don't do PI planning well, then you're not doing SAFe at all, in a proper way. You will not be able to deliver true value. So if you're not doing PI planning, then you're not doing SAFe. That's how it is. So this is the heart and soul of SAFe, PI planning. That is why I thought of sharing this actual demonstration of how to do PI planning well. Okay, but before I get into the demo, I want to share a couple of things. First is preparing for PI planning is extremely important. If you don't prepare for PI planning, there will be chaos. Because just imagine, there will be around 100 to 125 plus people going to be part of this PI planning event. And when I say 100 people, it includes developers, testers, BAs, architects, business, customers, the sales team, the finance team, the operations team, the infrastructure team, the HR, sometimes even the ethics team, all those, everyone. So if you are a stakeholder for the product, you better be part of the PI planning event. If you have a say, if you have a requirement, you better be part of the PI planning event. And you are part of the Agile release train. That's the idea. All right. So PI planning is a very important event because everyone is out there for the same purpose, with the same focus, with the same direction and value, right? So we need to make sure PI planning is done well. So this is a simulation of a product called piplanning.io. This is a product which is there in the market. I really like it, so I'm just going to do a demo on this. Remember, here we are not here to learn the product. Here we are here to understand what PI planning is. Okay, so let's get into this one. So, for example, when you look at this PI planning, you know what? Probably I will get into a different team. All right, I'll get into team F. So when you look at this, this is the structure of PI planning itself. If you're new to PI planning, this is what you know. Iteration 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. The fifth iteration is called IP iteration. IP stands for innovation and planning. Okay. So SAFe recommends 5 iterations. I mean, it is not 5. I'd like to call it 4 plus 1 because there are 4 iterations and plus 1, which is the IP iteration. But this is not a rule. This is just a recommendation. So you can decide if you want 4 plus 1, 5 plus 1, 3 plus 1, right? But the most important thing you need to understand is one PI cannot exceed 1 quarter, ideally. All right. So the duration of a PI is 1 quarter, 3 months. So you decide based on the duration of your iterations, how many iterations can come into this PI, right? So that is something which can be customized. In this case, I've got an example as a 4 plus 1. Okay. Now, the other 2 most important items of a PI planning event are these 2. PI, this is objectives, PI objectives and risks. So this is how you set up the stage in your PI planning event. Okay. What are the inputs for having a successful PI planning event? So the inputs to having a successful PI planning events are the first one. There are usually 5 inputs I try to go with. Right. I just want to make sure the power is on. Okay, just a minute. All right. There are 5 inputs I always try to go in with before our PI planning event. The first one is making sure you have a prioritized program backlog. You remember we just spoke about the program backlog. So make sure you have prioritized program backlog in place. And the program backlog contains features and enablers. And who is responsible to make sure this is in place? Product manager. The roles and responsibilities. Again, I'm just making sure the roles and responsibilities are understood well. Product managers are responsible to make sure the features are in place before the PI planning event starts. Not only that, they should be in place, they also should be prioritized. And one of the suggested prioritization techniques in SAFe is called WSJF, which is weighted shortest job first. Okay, I'm not getting into details of that right now. So that is the first input. The second input to having a successful PI planning event is architectural runway, which means the tracks for the train should be in place, right? The infrastructure should be in place, the environment should be ready, the database should be there, the network should be there, the data should be there as well. Because if those prerequisites are not there, after PI planning event, the teams are expected to start delivering. But if the prerequisites are not there, how can they deliver value? So that is one of the important things, that the architectural runway should be in place, the prerequisite should be in place. That is what we call it, the definition of ready. The definition of ready. So who is responsible for that? The system architects / system engineers. They are responsible for that. The third input is education and training. And this is why we are doing this as well. Making sure there are around 125 people, going to be part of PI planning event. If they don't understand what SAFe is, if they don't understand what PI planning is, if they don't understand what is their roles and responsibilities during PI planning and after PI planning during the PI, just imagine the kind of confusion they will have. And that is one of the reasons education and training is extremely important. You need everyone who is going to be part of the PI planning event have clarity of thought. All right. So who is responsible to make sure the clarity of thought is there? The RTE, release train engineer, right? They are the chief scrum masters, right? So they are responsible to make sure that is in place. That is the third input. The fourth input to having a successful PI planning event is breaking the features into initial stories, or should I say starter stories? Because you don't want the teams to be breaking, or the product owners to be breaking features into stories during PI planning. I mean, of course, that is going to happen. But the important thing is you don't want to start that as a first exercise, because it's going to take time. And PI planning is a time box. So it's always good to be prepared. So breaking features into initial stories or starter stories will give the team clarity in terms of what the feature is, what the stories are, probable stories are. That will give the teams a head start, a kickstart into their PI planning event. So the teams will go into PI planning event with confidence, with clarity. Not only physically they are ready, they are emotionally ready, they are psychologically ready to be part of PI planning event. Otherwise, it can become overwhelming. So that is the fourth input. Who is responsible for that? Of course, the product owners, right? Product owners break the features into stories or initial stories with the help of the team. Right? They can come up with new stories during PI planning, no problem. Right? The fifth input that I always like to carry with me is high-level dependency chart, which means in PI planning, there are multiple teams who is part of one train. But it's always good to understand that, okay, there are about 10 features. How are these features connected to each other? How are they related to each other? That kind of a high-level dependency chart will really create a better clarity and mindset when they get into PI planning event. Okay. They can come up with detailed dependencies during PI planning. Of course, they will have to do that, but high-level dependencies always good to have before PI planning. So these are the who is responsible for the fifth one. It's a combination of architects and product management, because the dependency could be a functional dependency or it could be a technical dependency, right? So that's how it is. So these are the 5 inputs which makes sure you are prepared well for PI planning. All right, now when we get into PI planning, what do we have? Look at this. When you look at the backlog, this is what you have. Program backlog. What does the program backlog contain? It contains features, right? Now, some of the features are dark blue, some of the features are light blue. Why? Because dark blues are the ones which are already assigned to a team. Look at this. It is assigned to team A, team B, team D, but the light blue ones are not assigned. That is why. That's the color difference. And what are these numbers? 10, 9, 8, 7. These are WSJF numbers, which makes it prioritized program backlog. So this is what the first input is, right? Now, what happens is when you assign, for example, I've assigned this feature to team A, right? When you go to team A, I know there are some questions coming in. I've not been able to look at those questions. I will check the questions, but I just wanted to make sure my thought process is complete, and then we will get into the questions for sure. So when I go to team A, because a feature has already been assigned to team A, look at this. The stories and enablers are already assigned here.
Let me know
Right.
when you need me next.
Sorry, Ali, do you have a question? All right, so this is the idea, right? So we have this. The iterations will have stories and enablers. Now you can move the stories to different iterations based on the flow of work, and you can decide which story has to be in which iteration. Of course, the dependent one has to go first and the non-dependent one has to go next. So this is an example out here, right? For example, this story has a dependency on this enabler. Look at this. So you do this enabler first so that you can complete this story in the second iteration. So this kind of a flow makes it a big difference, and this visual way of doing things makes a big difference in understanding how it needs to be done. But there is a very important thing out here on the top. Look at this: capacity and load. Now capacity is your velocity minus your vacation time, right? Velocity is how many story points can you actually deliver in a particular iteration. The team, how many story points the team can actually deliver in a particular iteration, minus any vacation days. If the team member is going to take 2 days off, 3 days off, you need to remove those things as well. So that's how you get the capacity. And the load is nothing but adding the story points. The total story points will give you the load for that iteration. So look at this. This is what we have. 8 plus 2 plus 5 plus 5 gives you 20, right? So that's the load. So always the load has to be less than the capacity. If the load is more than the capacity, I'll just change it for the time being. Look at this, what happens. A warning sign comes up. It says, oh, something is wrong. The load is more than your capacity. All right. Even if you put the load to be equal to your capacity, the warning sign remains, because that is too much of a risk. So that is why it is recommended that you have the load less than the capacity. And look at this part. Look at this pie chart for a second. This pie chart tells you capacity allocation. This is brilliant. This is very important. Capacity allocation. So when you look at this pie chart, it tells you in this iteration, 65% of the effort is going to go like a spike, infrastructure enabler, exploration enabler, whatever. In this case, it is exploration enabler. 65% of the work is going to be exploration enabler, which means you want to build a prototype, a proof of concept, a spike. And only 35% of the work is going against a user story, right? A functional requirement. Whereas in iteration 2, when you look at this, 100% of the work is going into the functionality, building the functionality. This is perfect. And this is how capacity allocation has to be managed within a team. You don't want to do only user stories. You need to mix it up. You need to have stories and enablers and what do you call it, maintenance. All those things should be mixed up. Otherwise, technical debt will grow uncontrollably. All right. And the next part is objectives. So once you plan the work, the teams will write something called PI objectives. Now, there is a lot of confusion in PI objectives that I've seen in the industry. The important thing is to understand that PI objectives are a summary. PI objectives are a summary, is a summary of all the work that you're doing for the whole PI. So you just put it as a summary items. Now, the question is, why are we writing this? That's because business, the customers and the business, who is going to approve the work or who is going to not approve, at least accept the work, I would say. That's a better word. They are the ones who are going to read this. See, when you call the business or the executive and say that, oh, these are the stories and enablers we are going to build, are they going to understand that? They don't care what the story or enablers are. What they care about is, what is the end result? What are you going to give me at the end of the PI? Isn't it? And that is one of the reasons you summarize the work and put it in business language as far as possible, so that business will read these and they will understand, oh, these are the PI objectives. This is exactly what you want to deliver. So now there are two sections out here. One is out on the top and the other is something called uncommitted objectives. So the confusion again is, what is committed and uncommitted objectives? So the answer is out this way. If the teams, see, remember, the teams write the PI objectives after they have planned the work, for the whole PI. Okay. So now you need to understand that they are summarizing the work after they have planned it. But what is the guarantee that the teams are going to be confident in delivering everything? They may be, they may not be, isn't it? So the idea is this: even though the teams have planned the work, maybe they may not be confident of delivering all the work. That could be because maybe there are a lot of unknowns. Maybe because there is an external dependency. Maybe because they don't have the skill set. Whatever it is, right? So it could be any of these reasons because of which the team probably is not confident of delivering something. So if the team is not confident of delivering it, then encourage the team to put it under uncommitted objectives. So this is very important, right? So if the team is not confident, they will put it as uncommitted. If the team is confident, they will put it as committed. This provides clarity of thought. Not only that, it makes sure the expectations are clearly defined, because managing expectations is one of the most important thing in such a big project or product development, because the biggest conflict happens because of expectations, right? I'm expecting something, you are expecting something else, there is a conflict. So that is one of the most important thing. That's why by making it transparent, there is your managing expectations. So as soon as the business looks at these PI objectives, they know, oh, these are committed, these are uncommitted. Okay. So when they look at this, it becomes transparent, which means that they know that they may not get these things at the end of the PI. And there will be questions. There will be suggestions saying that, oh, what help do you need? What can we do to help you to make this a committed objective? That kind of collaboration, that kind of communication will start. And that's extremely important. Okay. And of course, the PI objectives will be understood, and then the business will put something called business values, which means the business will say, out of these PI objectives, how much they would like to rank it. The higher the number, the more the value. So they put a value between 1 and 10, 10 being the highest business value, 1 being the lowest business value. And they will mark it out there. And then looking at that business values, the teams will understand, okay, which portion of the PI objective is more important for the business and which one is not as important. Everything anyway needs to be delivered, but which has to be focused more and which needs to be focused less, relatively lesser. That kind of a discussion or understanding and clarity will happen. So this is a place where there is a clear handshake between teams and the business. teams say this is what we can actually deliver, and business will say, okay, we hear you, we understand, and this is what is important for me. So when you look at this business value, there are high business values. Look at this example. There are high business value for something which is uncommitted. Business will freak out, isn't it? And this is very important because it creates transparency. So when management looks at this, or teams will look at this saying that, oh my God, uncommitted objectives have a high business value. So everyone will come to help you or your team to understand and make sure that what can we do to help you to make this a committed one, because it has got high business value. So that kind of support will be provided, and that is extremely important. And then ultimately there is risk. You need to identify the risks, and all those things should be part of it. So again, it's a ROM board. Is it resolved? Not resolved? Sorry, Ranjan, any questions? All right, so this is what the risk board is, the program board. Is it resolved? See, every risk has to be in one of these four cornerstones. Either the risk has to be owned by someone, and if it is owned by someone, they need to do something about it so that it is resolved. Then it goes into resolve. If it cannot be resolved, then it goes as mitigation. Maybe the risk is there, but you're reducing the impact of the risk. That goes into mitigation. And finally, it goes as accepted. If you cannot do anything about the risk, oh my God, the risk is going to happen. Let's see what happens. Let it happen. We tried everything, but the risk is still there. If that is the case, then it goes as accepted. All right. So these are the things I wanted to share with you. I'm just being aware of the time. I will take some questions, but before that, I want to make sure there is another agenda. I want to make sure I do keep, and then I will open up for questions. Okay. This is what I was talking about. In 5.1, these are the changes that have been made from 5.0 to 5.1. Okay, so the first on the top is operational value stream. So they identify the value streams on the top. It says that, okay, and they are calling it out. That was there in the previous version as well, but it was not called out in the bigger picture. So they are just calling it out. The second is the PB, which is what budgeting, Weisland? Participatory budgeting, which is part of the number 2, and that is very important in lean portfolio management, LPM. Okay, that's a very important course, LPM, especially for people who are at portfolio. They work at the portfolio level, participatory budgeting. Then number 3 is again value stream. So number 1 is operational value stream, but number 3, if you see, it's development value stream. So these are the 2 key value streams. They are calling it out in the big picture. All right. And then number 4 is talking about solutions as well. So as a solution, you want to deliver the full work, the big picture. Number 5, they made some changes to that section, especially the release on demand. You know, the release on demand was at the end of the continuous delivery pipeline. Now they say that you can release anytime, not just at the end. You can release anytime. So that is why they're just calling it out at the whole section. And again, 6 talks about solution, and the focus is always on the solution that you want to deliver to the customer. And number 7 is Devsecops. This is a new version which has come in SAFe 5.1. DevOps was there in the older version. They have introduced DevOps 5.1 certification, which includes Devsecops. Security is added to DevOps. And Weisland is the champion in Devsecops. He's an amazing guy out there. Number 8, we already spoke about business and technology being combined, because everyone who is part of the team should be part of this. Number 9, they just talk about SPC, which is a very important certification, which is a very important course where you become SAFe program consultant. Once you become an SPC, you can train others. So SPCT will train the SPCs, train the trainer, and then you can teach others the way I am doing. And then the 10th one is 5.1. So these are the 10 changes in the 5.1 version. I will share this with you. It is also there in the SAFe website. No problem on that. The other thing I wanted to share is this. What is this? B. What does it say? So these are the certifications which have been updated to 5.1. Leading safe and safe for teams. Then RTE, release train engineer. And then you have lean portfolio management. And then you have safe DevOps. These are all the latest 5.1 version. And of course, the big one is this SPC, Safe 5.1. These are all in the 5.1 version. All the other certifications are still in 5.0. Okay, so, but not much of a difference between the two. So it doesn't matter which version you are doing the certification, but just be aware of these are the 5.1 versions and the others are still 5.0 versions. Safe is continuously updating their certifications to the 5.1 version. All right. And then the last thing is the certifications that is coming up in the near future. I'm going to do certain certifications. Wiseland, the champ, is going to talk about SPC certification as well. So these are the upcoming certifications in the near future, April and early May. SPC is a very important certification in case you have, if you need. So these are the promo codes. Please take a note of these promo codes if you need discounts. And you can reach out to me or anyone, Wiseland or anyone in IBC to get more discussions, more details, anything you need, more discounts. We will talk about it. So this is what we have. So, oh my God, that was a monologue. All right, I wanted to make sure I talk about everything, and I'm gonna check all the questions. I'm opening the forum for any questions you have. All right. So first question is, what is the tool name called? Okay, for PI board. Okay, so it is called piplanning.io. That is the, if you go to piplanning.io, you will be able to find out. It's a fantastic tool. Okay, so and it talks to Jira and other ALM tools, right? So it's very, very collaborative. It's a two-way communication. Could objectives be seen as PI inventory for delivery? Yeah, you can think of that, absolutely, but it has to be confirmed from both parties. What else? The feature can be shared among 2 or more teams. Oh, of course, you can share the features among 2 or more teams. Absolutely, yes. But there has to be more coordination. Ideally, if one team focuses on one feature, that becomes easier. But if each feature is divided amongst multiple teams, no problem, you can do that. But then the coordination has to be really, really good amongst those teams. So as far as frame, yeah, is not needed as. So it could be PI planning. The best practice is 2 days. The cadence for PI planning, but it could be 3 days, it could be 3.5 days, it could be 1.5 days. It's okay. Do what is right. Don't do because SAFe is saying so. SAFe talks about the best practice, but you know your world better. So you can customize the way it works for you. All right. But understanding the best practices makes a big difference. All right. Inputs to PI planning. Okay. So I believe you have that. Thanks, Smita, for sharing few links out there. Vision can be optional in PI planning. No. Vision is not optional. It's always good to understand what the vision is, but there are different types of vision. There is a company vision, there is a portfolio vision, there is a program vision. So you need to be aware of which vision are you talking about, right? Company vision is too high level, but program vision is more focused. So that is what is more important in PI planning. Absolutely, yes. Everything has to be aligned. That's the key. How many stories do you have ready for PI planning? It's difficult to say how many stories. That's why we say starter stories. Don't over plan for PI planning. If you over prepare, then you can go into PI planning with a rigid mindset. You don't want to go into PI planning with a rigid mindset. You still need flexibility. So have those things so you decide how many stories, but don't yeah, just be aware that you don't go in with a rigid mindset. Important thing is the team should get a kickstart, a head start into PI planning. Yes, can be optional, say it's not framework, great insights. Okay, every train does its own PI planning. Yes, absolutely. Every train, thanks Supriya for answering that. Every train will have their own PI planning event. Yes. Oh, otherwise just imagine the chaos. All right, good questions, good questions. Thank you guys. And then what else? New questions coming up. They used to call it stretch. Yes, stretch objectives, but they changed it because stretch objectives is misleading. You know, you don't want to know. So that's why they changed it. I'm really glad they did. We have been asking them to do that. Okay, I remember during PI planning, if teams cannot commit fully, they called it enabler. No. They didn't call it enabler. They called it stretch or uncommitted. They didn't call it enablers are something different. Enablers are technical stories like NFRs, which is required for your functional stories to be complete. Whew. All right, guys, tell me, talk to me. Was it helpful? Give me a thumbs up. Except for Wiseman, I don't see anyone else clapping because you are not on camera. But thank you, Wiseman. Great. Fantastic. So, okay, I'll give you my details, okay? Now, this is important because if you have any questions anytime, you can reach out to me. So this is my email, kumresh29@gmail.com. And I'm on LinkedIn as well. You probably know that. Probably you found this session from the LinkedIn. And this is my number. You can call me at 911. Remember that. Just easy number, 911, call me. Okay, I'm just kidding. Don't go there. All right, this is my number. Okay, 647-567-2250. All right, so do reach out anytime, no problem. If any questions, if I don't pick up your call, that which means I'm busy, I'll call you back. Okay, so great. Any questions? Okay, our next sessions are coming up. Please sign up. And thank you. If you want to log off, no problem. I'm still here. If you have any questions, I'm still here till the last person logs off. Thank you. All right. Okay. Thank you. I'm stopping the recording now.